Welcome back to my channel. So today we are starting the 2024 ink collection series. This is my favorite type of video to watch my friends put together at the end of the year, and I just love doing it every year. Clearly the ink collection has grown quite significantly this year, so let's get into seeing what I've purchased this year, what I've added, and what I've gotten rid of. Alright, let's get into this. I have my Col-O-Ring swatches and I have my Rolodex swatches. My Rolodex are not on Col-O-Ring paper, they are on Rolodex paper because I find that imitates the paper that I use better than Col-O-Ring paper does. Whereas I like the sort of effect Col-O-Ring paper gives me for like color accuracy. First up, Pelikan highlighter. This ink, super useful. I use it all the time in a Kaweco Sport highlighter. Specifically, this Ice Glow one with a 1.9mm stub on it. It's super great, and I don't know what I'd do without it, honestly. It's almost always inked. JR Balm Bouton d'Or. I only own this color because of an SBRE brown rant. It's not a good yellow. There are better yellows. Freshly Squeezed Sunshine from Ferris Wheel Press. I actually like this yellow. It's really good for mixing, especially if you're into that, but it's not great for writing. Treasured Manuscripts. This is advertised as being a brown. Mine is like a weird, like greenish yellow color. I don't hate it, I don't love it. Cream of Earl is supposed to be not this color. I don't remember what the original color was supposed to be. It was a color that Ferris Wheel Press discontinued because it had major fading issues. And mine is green. I think it was supposed to originally be a light pink. Goose Poupon is an ink that I have a sample of from a friend. They've just discontinued this, and I did debate getting a bottle of it, but I don't actually use it all that often. I've only had it inked up once, and so I really don't think I need a bottle of it. We have Frivolous Lime from Ferris Wheel Press, another color I've got a sample of that I've debated getting a bottle of, but honestly, I don't know that I'd use it, but they've also just discontinued it, and I do sort of like it as like lime greens go. We'll see if a bottle comes home with me. Monteverde Key Lime Pie. I love the color of this ink. What I don't love is the fact that it feathers. I know it works really well on some papers. It just doesn't work super well for me on MD paper. I think it probably works really well on Tomoe River paper, but I don't use that, and so I need to find a paper that it works well on because I do really like the color. This color from Sailor, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, is so insanely fun and I adore it. I've swatched it on now I think 4 or 5 different papers. It's a different color on every paper and it's just a great time. It's also sort of crazy. We have Peter Moss, 38mm milliliter bottle size. I love this color clearly because I also have it in a sample, which is what I bought it in first. Subarashi from Sailor. I like it. Do I like it enough to get a bottle? No. Morningside Mint. Love this green. They've just discontinued it. I'm glad I have an 85ml bottle of it. Confetti Blue by Robert Oster. I believe this was a special edition for Stationery Fest, I want to say. I ended up, somebody at the Atlas Sidewalk sale had samples of it, and so I've got, I think, 10 mils of it. It's fun. I like it. I really like how it shades in the pooling, and I do need to ink it up at some point next year. Yoseka Ink Studio Origin No. 1. This, to me, is just like a basic dark green. I wish they'd done something more fun. Private Reserve Avocado. Same issue I have with Key Lime Pie from Monteverde, is that it's a really pretty color, it just feathers. And that is a reoccurring issue that I have with the Monteverde and Private Reserve inks, is that I love their colors. they just don't place super nicely on the paper I use, and I need to find a different paper. Dancing Time Ferris Wheel Press, very much in my color palette of like dusty colors and muted colors. I have had this inked up this year, and I suspect that it will be inked up again in 2025 at least a few times. I do really enjoy it. Spruce County Post, another sample vial only Ferris Wheel Press color. There's just like something about it that I don't like. I don't know if it's the fact that it's so muted and then it gets so dark, and I expect it to shade more when I write with it, and it just doesn't, and I find that disappointing, but there's just something about it that I don't like, and that's why I didn't pick up a bottle. Diamine Caribbean Green. I have a love-hate relationship with Diamine. I can't get the lids off their packages because they're perfectly smooth, and that annoys me, and so I don't actually own that many Diamine inks. Caribbean Green, though, is really, really pretty, and so it might be worth the struggle of, you know, asking Mom to open my ink bottle every time I want to use the ink. Diamine Aurora Borealis. The funny thing is, I gave away my bottle of this ink because, again, I couldn't get the cap off of it, and like 6 months later, or 6 weeks later, I had a pen that perfectly matched this ink, and I had to track down a bottle of it again. So I've already gotten rid of this ink and reacquired it once, so it's staying. Tasha Sabi Midori, one of the most brought up inks in 20 questions by far, to the extent that somebody who did 20 questions sent me a vial of it. I adore this ink. My issue is every time I go to pick it up, it's out of stock. And so I still don't own a bottle of this, but I desperately want one. And it's now the winter in Canada, and so no one's shipping ink. So I think I'm going to have to wait until the spring to pick up a bottle of this, which is really sad. I think it would be a good winter pen color to have inked up. But I definitely see why it's earned its spot as one of the most popular 20 questions colors. Blue Yosemite Falls Ferris Wheel Press. I love this color, but I've never had it inked up in a pen, and I've only got it in a sample vial. I think it's actually one of Mom's inks, but it's super pretty. Three Steamboats. This is a recent addition to my collection, and by recent I mean like in the past sort of maybe 2 weeks. I had a whole bunch of Ferris Wheel Press points to cash in, and I'd been going back and forth about this color for probably since, I want to say, January last year. I figured I should get it because I've got a magenta from them and a yellow from them, and then I've got a CYM mixing palette with this color, and so even if I didn't like it as a color itself, it would be fairly useful for mixing. So I'm quite happy I have it. I haven't inked it up yet, but I am happy that it's legible to write with, which I find to be an issue with light blues. Sailor Haha. Adore this color. Mom has had this color inked up in a pen constantly since August. I have had it inked up, I think I had it inked up in a pen from August until like middle of November. I love this color. There's just something about it that makes me really happy. I love the hint of purple in it. It's a great color. Diamine Celadon Cat. This is a Reddit ink. It's really fun, but honestly, I don't know that it's different enough from Storied Blue to justify another bottle, or a bigger bottle. I've got a 30 ml of it, I believe, and so I think that's the only size I'll get of it. Storied Blue. I have a couple different Storied Blues. So this is the Storied Blue green shade. I have one of the Storied Blue from the Wonky batch, as well as the proper Storied Blue. And so this is a Storied Blue from the Wonky batch, and I'm actually going to set this card aside so we can compare them. But luckily Atlas, when I sent them the swatch, sent me the correct bottle. So I do have the correct Storied Blue as well. Warringall Robinson Crusoe. This is another ink that is technically Mom's, but is also living with my ink collection. I love everything about this ink, and I definitely need to put it in a pen with a more fun nib. When I had it inked up, I had it in I want to say I had it in a medium nib, and that just wasn't enough for it to be super fun. I think it definitely needs to be in a broad or a flex or something like that. And so maybe I'll put it in a flex early next year. We'll see. Sailor Studio 641. This is actually my first Sailor Studio ink, and I love the Sailor inks. They're great inks. I don't know how I feel about this ink. I'm not really a sort of like dark teal person, and there's just like something about it I don't love. But I'm happy that I was able to finally try the Sailor Studio inks. Really, they feel pretty similar in a pen formula-wise to the other Sailor inks. Bluegrass Velvet. I can never get over how different this color is depending on the papers. It's so much darker there than it is here. It's a super fun color. I've had it inked up a couple times over the years. I've just got it in a sample vial. It's another one of the colors they've just discontinued, but it is super great. Next up, we have Cotton Candy Blue, and there's a sticky note because we've already had that swatch card. So in the early days, I was swatching 3 on a card if they were a sample vial or a set, and so this was the High Tea Mini Charger Collection set. And so Cotton Candy Blue is a very pretty pale blue, but honestly, I don't know. I didn't get a bottle of it because I've got other pale blues that I really like that are more legible. I actually don't own any of the High Tea collection in bottles, like full bottles. Robert Oster, Romeo and Juliet, love this color. Once again, I need to have it inked up in a broader nib. I put it in something too small last month, and it definitely needs a broader nib that is a wetter writer versus something that's a drier writer, so that you get the fabulous pink. Sailor Snow Light Blue. I love this blue. I was lucky enough to pick up this bottle as old stock, and so it's the old 50 ml bottles, and I'm so happy I have it in a 50 ml because I really like the color. Private Reserve Daphne Blue. Once again, we have the feathering issue, not as badly with this blue, but still a little bit. And it's pretty similar to the Sailor ink, which is why I haven't looked for a replacement for this paper as sort of actively as I probably should be. I like my MD Travelers inserts because they've got dots on them, but I do sometimes wish Travelers made other paper with dots because there are inks like the Private Reserve inks that just need a different paper. Dusk and Bloom. I own too many bottles of this ink. We're just going to say that. I think I'm up to 3 because this ink is now on 14 months of being in a pen straight. I love this blue. This is my everyday blue, and honestly I don't want to go out looking for another everyday blue because I love it, and they've just discontinued it, and I'm really sad about that. Andurilium Butterfly. My issue with Andurilium is that they're stunning, and I really just like their jars. I can't get the lids off of their jars easily, the little jam jars. But it's a really pretty blue. It has also picked up some of the sheen from the Birmingham ink to below it for whatever reason, but there is no sheen to it. It's just this very pretty sort of dusty blue with a bit of a pink shade to it. Fighting Fish. Very, very blue. Also very different depending on the paper you put it on. You've got like this cobalty, or you've got this very like cerulean. Tesla Coil, the only really, I would say, sheening reflective ink I own. I have got a sample of this from somebody on Instagram. I think it's really cool. Would I ever use it? No, it takes too long to dry, but it is super neat. Jelly Bean Blue. It's like ballpoint blue. I don't love it, but at the same time, I have used it in a pen because it does have some fun sort of shading to it. And I will probably use it in a pen again, but I won't be getting a bottle of it. Esterbrook Aqua. Very different depending on the paper. But I do like the Esterbrook inks. They dry nicely. And I will be picking up some bottles of the Esterbrook ink in the future. We have this storied blue, which is very pretty and clearly matches that, which is going to be important when I pull this out and you see that that bottom one does not match, which is why Atlas ended up replacing the bottle, which I was very grateful for. And so I've got a proper bottle of the storied blue. Malibu Blush, or Malibu Blue from Monteverde. For whatever reason, this color really doesn't feather, which is really funny because it's probably the Monteverde color I use the least, though I do have a bottle of it. I think I should probably mix like a little bit of pink or a little bit of red with it and like change the color ever so slightly. I think I'd use it a lot more. Brook Rush Blue by Diamine is, I believe, a special edition that they did for an event somewhere. I honestly don't know how I got my sample of it. It might have been in a random sample swap. All of a sudden, I just sort of had one and was doing this research on this random Diamine ink. It's like, when you think of blue, you think of this color. It almost reminds me of Yin Min a little bit, but it is also an ink that I've never put in a pen, and I don't know that I will. Troublemaker. This one has a fun, like, greeny gold sheen to it. I might put it in a pen this week. We'll see. Faber-Castell Cobalt Blue. I love the Faber-Castell inks. I don't own any in bottles, but I use their cartridges all the time, and they're fabulous. I really like their Cobalt Blue, and we'll probably be getting a bottle once the sample runs out because it's a really pretty, like, dark blue. Robert Oster X Atlas Polar Vortex. I currently have this inked up. I love it. I said I wasn't going to get a bottle until I was through my 10 ml samples of it. I don't know that that's going to be true. I think I'm probably getting a bottle sooner rather than later because I do genuinely really enjoy it. So this says Quink Blue. It's actually Quink Blue Black, but the bottles aren't labeled, so I had to look up swatches online. I'm shocked at how much I adore this color. I've got it in an Estie right now. I've had it in an Estie for a couple weeks. There's just something about it that makes me really happy. I would say in my Estie it falls more into like this like sort of blue-gray realm versus like the ballpoint blue, and it's super pretty. Sailor Blue Black. I adore this color. My bottle is probably a third empty, and I think I've only had my bottle since May. This is a great color. I use it all the time, and it's got some super fun shading. Ferris Wheel Press DRS Navy. I've wanted to get a bottle of this ink for ages. It, I believe, was a store exclusive to Japan, and they never have it in stock on the Canadian website. So once I'm done this sample, I'm done. Mont Blanc Midnight Blue. This was a Hemingway Jones suggestion, and as always, he was very correct. This ink has now been in my Navelure for 6 months, I want to say. I now have a small but growing collection of Mont Blanc inks for all my vintage stuff, but I just keep coming back to Midnight Blue. It's a super fabulous color, and I totally understand the hype around it. Cold Steel. Looks super different depending on the paper, and definitely not water resistant, but is a really fun color. I do really like its shading over here, and I do need to put it in a pen because I think it would look really good, especially in something like a flex. And then we have the 2024 Chicago Pen Show ink, which was by Anderillium. I've had this inked up, Mom has had this inked up, and both of us actually really like it. And I almost didn't buy a bottle. It was my final purchase of the show. I bought it as they were packing up the event, but I'm quite happy that I came home with a bottle because I definitely use it quite a lot. So there are my yellow, green, and blue ink colors. Let me know if I've missed any of your favorites. I'm always on the hunt for new inks for my collection, and I am sure that I will get a couple great suggestions below for inks to add or inks to at least get samples of next year. And thanks so much for watching.